Thomas Larsen with EMAX Bowling, and this is my review of the new Storm Nova. So the Nova is Storm's newest ball in the Premier line, and they've put together a pretty strong asymmetric ball in the Nova. It has the ignition core, which is a really strong asymmetrical core, pretty low RGs, pretty high differentials, high mass bite strength, so a core that really wants to get going and make a lot of motion. And then they've paired it with the R2X hybrid cover, which is also a pretty strong Coverstock. So overall you're going to get a pretty strong asymmetric ball that will give you easy hook and actually a pretty nice controllable motion. What I'm seeing from the Nova is that it's a little smoother, which I really like because it allows me to play a little bit straighter, even though the ball is as strong as it is, but it's not so smooth that it's not versatile. So I'm seeing a lot of good things from the Nova, and I think we should go to the lanes and see me throw some shots with it so you can see for yourself. And I'm of course gonna compare the Nova to what have been my two favorite asymmetrical balls the past year, the Proton Physics from Storm and the Reality from 900 Global. So let's see how they look on the lanes. I'm testing the Nova out here on a 40-foot medium pattern, and the Nova actually looks really good, playing just a little left of third arrow. Obviously, if you're a lower rev rate, you probably would want to play a little further right. Higher rev rate, you would want to play a little further left. But the Nova really gives me this nice, easy read on this medium pattern, and controllable but still continuous back-end motion. I really like seeing that kind of motion because it allows me to control the pattern, especially on fresh patterns or patterns that are a little shorter maybe, or a little wet-dry. This nice controllable round shaped motion, kind of a medium response time, really gives me a lot of options what I want to do, and allows me to blend out the dry and the wet parts of the lane really well to create the best possible ball motion so I can get to the pocket as easy as possible. And I'm really seeing this from the Nova. It kind of reminds me of a benchmark ball, just in the upper tier of the strength category, if you could put it that way, like the benchmark asymmetrical strong ball, a ball I would use a lot of times when I have to play straighter, or if I'm bowling on the fresh. So I think this is really going to come into play a lot, and yeah, as you can see, I have a pretty good look on this pattern playing where I am right now. So I tried moving around a little bit, moving about 5 boards right with the Nova, throwing it a little faster, and it still looked pretty good. Because of how smooth and controllable it is, it still allows me to move closer to the friction without over jumping. So that's a really good sign for me, because that means that I can play a little closer to the friction. I can lower my rev rate and play straighter with it, which I also think is a good thing for people that don't have as much rev rate, because the ball will see the friction and roll off of it rather than jump off of it and force you to open up your ankle. So that's a really good sign. I also tried jumping 5 left to see what would happen, and you can see that the Nova still gets to the pocket. It still looks decent, but it doesn't quite want to go through the pins, which is just a result of the Nova being a little bit too smooth, at least on this pattern, for these kind of angles, which is completely fine because I have other balls that can do that. So it's definitely a ball where you're looking a little bit more for control, being able to play a little straighter angles, and the Nova will give you a really good chance at doing that. And I also think if I were to do a little taller pin on the Nova, a little more quick response time layout, I could pretty easily get it to go through the pins from further left. So it's all about what you want to do with the Nova, but I definitely feel like it's going to be a good option for all kinds of players on fresher conditions and a little bit tougher patterns. And for the wet dry, like a house shot that gets really wet dry, I think you can use the Nova to really blend out the dry and the wet and still create a good ball reaction when other people might be struggling with going high and then light and high and then light. So I'm really seeing a lot of good things out of the Nova. Let me know in the comments if you've tried the Nova, and give us a like, subscribe. It really helps us out here on the channel for EMAX Bowling, and make sure you follow us on social media to get all the new ball reviews, all my tournament vlogs and everything. So thank you guys. So as I said, I'm gonna compare the Nova to the Proton physics. Proton has basically been my go-to strong asymmetrical ball all last year. So it makes perfect sense to compare the Nova to another strong asymmetrical ball. You can see here I'm trying to throw the Proton in the same line as the Nova, and Proton gets down the lane a little bit easier, but definitely also a quicker response time, like a quicker motion down lane. So definitely seeing some difference between the two. And when I tried to move 5 left, where the Nova kind of wanted to 10-pin a little too easily, the Proton gets down the lane a little easier and comes off the dry part of the lane a lot harder. So it creates more entry angle from the deeper inside lines. So compared to the Proton, the Nova seems to be a little earlier and a little smoother, which also means that you can use it on a little straighter angles and fresher conditions than where the Proton might want to just jump a little bit for you. Then the Nova would be the perfect option to go to. Obviously also gonna compare the Nova to probably the most popular strong asymmetrical ball last year, the 900 Global Reality. And as you can see here, I'm trying to throw the Reality on the same line as the Nova, and it's obviously a lot earlier than the Nova, which makes sense because the Reality is probably is the strongest ball I have in my bag. It's the earliest and strongest ball I have. So it being earlier than the Nova is really not a surprise. But you can see here I try to move left with the Reality, and it's definitely better. It's getting down the lane a little bit easier, but it's still running out of energy and wanting to hook too early on the lane. So on this pattern, this medium pattern, there's simply not enough oil for the Reality. It's too early, which is like, I think that's a good sign, because it shows me that the Reality is too early, so the Nova is a little cleaner, gets down the lane a little easier than the Reality, and it's probably a little smoother than the Reality too. The Reality, when there's enough oil, is pretty good at coming off the end of the pattern fairly strong. So I think the Nova will fit in well, because it's going to be a step down from the Reality in terms of how far down the lane it gets, and it's going to be a little smoother. So I think really that's a good thing, because the issue with the super strong balls is that sometimes they get too strong, like you're seeing on this pattern, and then it's good to have this just a little step down that'll allow you to get through the friction a little bit better without going sideways on the back ends. So I'm really positive about the Nova. It's looking as a good complement to both the Proton physics and the Reality. So it's going to be a really good matchup to have those 3 balls in my bag. So a summary of the Nova: it's a strong asymmetrical ball with a hybrid cover. It's fairly early but pretty smooth, really nice rolly motion. It's gonna be great on patterns where you need to blend out the wet-dry, blend out the friction a little bit, create a little more control. For example, on fresh patterns, on little shorter patterns, on patterns where they might be a little bit tougher if you're bowling on a sport condition, for example, or on house shots that get really wet dry, because it's gonna be early enough to pick up in the oil, but it's still not gonna be so early or so strong down lane that it's gonna go sideways when you get it to the friction. It's just gonna kind of blend it out, smooth it out, and create a really nice rolling motion into the pins. I think it's gonna be a great ball for lower rev rates. It's gonna allow them to have a strong ball that'll pick up in the oil without going sideways down lane and forcing them to move left, so they can still play straight. It's going to be good for medium players because we can kind of do a lot of different things with it. We can throw it a little faster, go a little straighter, we can throw it a little slower and hook the lane more. So it's going to be very, very versatile. And for the higher rev rate players, it's going to give them a strong ball that'll allow them to get the ball to slow down in the middle part of the lane, not get too far down lane, but it's also going to be rolly and controllable, so they don't end up with big uncontrollable backends. So I think it's going to be a really good fit for a lot of different players on a lot of different patterns. So excited about the Nova, and if you like it, throw us a comment, give us a like, subscribe here on EMAX, and I'll see you for the next review coming up soon.